Nigeria's 2019 election program will kick off on Friday when the Independent National Electoral Commission gives political parties the go-ahead to start pre-election activities. But how will this news impact the pipeline of infrastructure projects already in the works? Now, Raj Kulasingam, a senior counsel at Dentons, joins us via Skype from London to discuss this. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Raj. Taking a look at what's really playing out in Nigeria today, when that timetable comes out, many believe governance will take a back seat and politics, of course, will become the order of the day. In terms of course, fulfilling all the promises the governments have made, infrastructure projects still in the pipeline, many are still skeptical on how that's going to play out, but that's what I know. What do you think?
Look, I think the history of this is that whenever you have an election coming up, everything tends to grind to a halt. And really the opportunity here is for that not to happen. So the government needs to say, well, okay, that may have been what happened in the past, but we're going to continue the process that we've started on and close some of these projects that we have embarked on to show investors that Nigeria is the right place to invest and that actually you can close projects, you can deliver power infrastructure, and you can at the same time reap returns. So the challenge is, can you actually move away from the history of an election announcement, meaning that there is paralysis, to a position where elections are going to happen, but we're going to continue to deliver what we promised we were going to deliver.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say this, but the project life cycle of most of the investment that we see is much longer than the electoral life cycle. So what we see is that final investment decisions were made before 2015, and those projects are going to end, let us say the refineries of Dangote and others are going to end about 2020. So new investment decisions, FIDs, are going to be made immediately after the election. So what we'll see is that we'll see a tapering off of investments which are maturing and which are getting completed, and we see another surge of FIDs, final investment decisions, which will come this way. So we are beginning to see projects which have 8-year or 5 to 8-year construction life periods now being scheduled around the electoral and political timetable. What happens? The big risk is that if there's a deadlock, if there's a political deadlock, 1, 2, if political misunderstandings are followed by political violence, right? But that is not likely to be the case because our democracy is mature.
Let's get Raj's thoughts on this. Raj, what are your thoughts?
So I think it is key that obviously the elections are fair and transparent and do not have any issues around raising some of the tensions that have been existing. So that anything like that will immediately spook the market. So I think what Bismarck says, is absolutely right. That as long as that is that those issues are kept under control, then the process that are already in place in terms of private sector projects that are going should just continue as normal. My point was really slightly different, which is that some of the projects that the government has started, for example, the solar power projects, for example, NIPP that started a while ago, those projects have been in the pipeline for some time now. And what I would not want to see is that we now have a paralysis of nothing happening whilst the election process starts. And ideally, what you'd want to see is some of these projects actually being closed. Because I think the key for Nigeria is that the more projects you can actually close and actually get to construction phase and delivery, the more interesting it'll be as an investment destination. So Bismarck's point about there needs to be stability is absolutely right. But I think we're all assuming that going on the back of the last elections, which everyone saw as a landmark election of Nigeria, that hopefully this election will continue in that same vein.
Well, it's interesting you should mention that, and there's something I picked up when you said when you started the interview. You said, whether Nigeria can actually change that history, change that narrative, where governance takes a back seat when it's time for politics. I mean, Bismarck, you will bear witness that with the Senate, it's been that ongoing war for them to actually sit down and even approve funds for elections to begin with. So when we talk about infrastructure right now, I understand what you're saying, Bismarck, the fact that we may not really feel the impact on any of this infrastructure before elections, probably maybe post-elections. But my question is, do you think we're going to see announcements of new infrastructure projects as a way to, would I call it, make political statements? But in terms of completing, I don't see that happening.
There'll be political gimmickry.
Okay.
But what we must not forget is that if you take the total budget of Nigeria, which is $27, $28 billion, for an economy which GDP is about almost $500 billion, it is insignificant. So the level of fiscal dominance in the economy has actually been declining over time, right? So where you now see that you do not overestimate the impact of government. Policy direction, government spending, government investment is important, but it's not a game changer. Okay. What is the game changer is if you make a decision to build Train 7 for LNG, investment of $20 billion. That's probably the entire budget. Dangote investing in the petrochemical, and so the FDI's decisions, that is the foreign direct investments and local investment, capital formation, one hand. Foreign portfolio investments, which are volatile and which move all over the place because of response to political sound bites and political uncertainty, is another thing. But this economy is also getting transformed cumulatively. Most important is that the fact that opposition has come into power before means that even if there was a change of government, it will not be ground shaking, right? You know, it will be difficult to absorb, but as unlikely as that may be, but that's the other side of the coin.
Interesting. Well, Raj, we're going to have to end it here. I just wanted to ask you, just in a nutshell, what is your own expectation? Just in one word, what do you want to see play out from now to the time of elections as it concerns infrastructure development?
What I'd like to see is some projects being closed, number one. I'd like to see an announcement that says there will be an infrastructure, let's call him a czar or a champion, who will actually pull all the ministries together and actually start delivering on some of the projects that have been in the pipeline. And thirdly, I'd like to see better coordination between the ministries to actually deliver these projects. And we need to get some of these projects closed and financially closed. And then what you'll start seeing is more and more, as you see more and more projects getting closed, you'll see more and more investors looking at Nigeria and saying, okay, this is a place where not only I can bring my capital, but I actually can close deals quickly and actually make money. If you look at the South African
I guess, Raj, we're just going to have to hope for the best on that note. I mean, when it comes to elections in Nigeria, that's the best we can do at this point. Hope. Okay. Raj Kulasingam there, Senior Counsel at Dentons.